All right, we're live. Welcome to the Collector Series on the Sports Dad channel now. And I had my friend Joe here on before with not too long ago while we were living on the Luca Tiger Braun network. And it was a very popular show. And this is Joey PeaPod. Joey's got extensive experience in the hobby, grading, you name it, everything. He's got a lot of experience, and he's someone that I think we need to give more exposure to more people in the hobby, because he's going to give us a lot of great information and perspective on different topics. We're talking to a lot of these guys that have been doing this for so long, understand things that none of us can possibly understand. I've been reminded I'm a novice still yet, and I am happy to be a novice and continue to be an apprentice and keep learning from this guy. Whose screen keeps going black because he's messaging somebody right now. I know.
No, I was freezing, so I had to close all my other apps. I'm like, why is this? It was you were jumbling.
You're solid, man.
Now we're good. Technical difficulties.
You're solid, man. You're solid. I'll just talk and keep it going. Anyway, we got Joey PeaPod here, and happy to have you again, brother.
Appreciate you having me.
I think
so. It's fun.
Yeah, no. It's cool, man. It's cool to have these conversations, because I think that, like we talked before offline, people don't understand a lot of things about the hobby, and I think it's great to teach and educate.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure.
And you had a comment, and we mentioned this comment before in the last episode, and it's a couple shows you did with Rodney, a friend of yours who's into the big Ken Griffey Jr. collector, and then Joey's a huge Ken Griffey Jr. collector, and I feel like I'm just bringing on all my Ken Griffey Jr. collector friends. But I mean, I can't help it, because a lot of these guys know a lot about the hobby as a whole. But you mentioned you had a couple shows where, opinions aren't facts. And
right.
Opinions aren't facts. It's important when you talk about grading and when you talk about comps. So today I want to kind of cover that topic once more, because we talked about grading a lot in our last episode, but I think there's a lot of folks here that might not have seen that episode. And I want to make sure everybody sees it, because I think it can help a lot of folks navigate the next couple of years in this hobby. And if you intend to stick around, I think it'd be valuable information for you to digest and learn from. So Joey, why don't you just tell us a little bit about your perspective on comps? Well, let's just roll with it. I think if you want to learn about Joey's backstory, you can go check out that first episode. We won't do that to you again, but he's been in this hobby for a long time. So Joey, talk to us about how you built to where you've been, how you've gotten to where you've gotten now briefly, but then, how comps have been important and timing has been important getting you to this point.
Yeah, we'll just jump right into the comps. Is I look at the hobby as a whole as like a game, right? So you're not going to just go play baseball tomorrow after taking 10 years off without maybe hitting the gym a little, stretching a little, doing a little research on maybe equipment for the game. And that's kind of I call it any new collectors, I call them the comp crew. Everything's comps this, comps that. And for the people that do know me and know I've sold a lot of stuff recently, you can see the different contrast between what something sells for. Does that mean that's what it's worth? Or did, me personally, even now, I'm so burnt out with all the sites. I only check eBay really, and occasionally PWCC and Golden when I see somebody post something on Instagram, because the endless amount of sites watered down liquidity. I noticed Josh Luber was talking about that one day about a Jordan rookie should always sell within 5%. Depending on the grade, it should always sell within that. And, that's not the case with all cards. There's so many different variables I don't think people look into. We'll just start rattling them off. The title, the day it ends, the time it ends. What else do you have listed with that? Like me personally, when I list, I just sold a bunch of Griffies. I list at least 20 auctions. Now, why do I do that? Because it brings more people in. I had 300 watchers on a couple cards, where if I just sell one card, it might get overlooked, for instance, Probstein, he gets good, you don't even know what's a solidified price with his auctions because so much gets relisted, but I pick off stuff off his all the time because it's not listed correctly, and I'll get double for it just running it at auction sometimes. And even the other day on Instagram, I saw somebody posted a Griffey that sold on his site, and I didn't even know it was up. So the timing of when something sells comes into the comp, time of the year. Right now, there's, the economy's all over the place. There's a lot of talk of, recession this, recession that, power of the dollar. So the market is definitely weaker overall, but that also comes into what you're selling. So I just sold a bunch of, a lot of rare stuff, and a lot of the stuff did okay. Overall, I hit the numbers, but some went lower, some went higher. There's some stuff I sold literally after the auction. I was getting offers for double. So again, it depends. All right, did that person see it? And I like to sell a lot of stuff privately, but sometimes you need the money. Like I needed to raise a certain amount of cash, so I didn't have time to, try to privately sell everything and, work it around. So I had to get what I got. A lot of the stuff I could have gotten more privately. I just didn't have the time, so it's, timing. And another thing with like comps is, if you don't have the research and the knowledge into like me, I'm not just going to go out and start buying Kobe cards and have a clue what I'm looking at. If something's if one card sold, say let's say 96 Topps Chrome PSA 10 refractor. I obviously know it's a big card, but I don't know if it's $50,000 or $500,000 card. So if I see one comp sale at 50 grand, I'm going to be skeptical. But somebody in the hobby might be like, "Oh, that's a steal," and know that. And like, because I believe you asked me like about, we had talked privately about the established. That's the card that rarely sells. I have a PSA 10. How would you know what it's worth? And there's no cut and dry answer to that. You're taking the leap of faith of like, all right, maybe I research Griffey and know that card never comes up. There's no sales for years. So if you want the PSA 10, you kind of got to get it now. I feel like there's certain cards that are safe bets overall. And then, if you're, I'm a 90's guy, so my stuff is already kind of solidified. If you're buying newer stuff, yeah, it's up and down, and you have to kind of follow the comps and if it's more readily available. But I feel like one of the terms they use in like Chris Hoge of what's that card ladder.
Card ladder.
Yeah, they always talk about hot potato, and that's kind of like the hobby. Like with the rise of the pandemic, that's kind of why you see the leveling off, because when everybody came in, they didn't know what to buy. So that's why the base card boom. Anybody that was in the hobby previous 4 years to 10 years, new base cards, like they're not going to hold value. They're not going to be huge. Like the only one of recent memory that was big was the 2011 Trout that like kind of held some value. But, like when Griffey's stuff shot up in the pandemic, his rookie era stuff, I'm like, I hope everybody cashes out because that's going to tank. It cannot hold value at $5 grand when they're still printing them type of thing. That's why, now you see this shift to people finally learning. Yeah, they really are. Now you see the shift to people really understand. All right, buy the rare cards. Buy something that's numbered to 10 or the premier parallels. Yeah. But even now they're getting out of hand. It might not be the junk era, but I bought into a couple Bauman breaks just because I'm a gambler at heart. So I got the Arizona Diamondbacks, and like just the amount of new parallels. Like before, I used to be like 6 or 7, right? Gold, red, blue. Mm-hmm. Now you got like blue lunar crater, and there's literally endless parallels. So it's like, to me, that's not that fun collecting the same card 400 times. I'd rather have like, I don't know, the established. There's only one insert, 100 of them, the end, and not 27 parallels to water the card down.
I know, but with that established, it's always good to share with your friends. It's always good to remember that you have friends out there that would love to share that card with you too. And so even though you love it so much, sometimes it's okay to, let some other collector find a home for it.
Yeah. No, I know you'll keep asking me. I'll give another example. I'll give an example of something I sold recently. I could have gotten like close to 30,000 for it privately. but due to a number of different circumstances, I needed to auction it. I got 15 for it. So it's like, is that card only worth 15? No, because like for instance, now in the Griffey world, most of the people I would normally sell to privately, they're tied up with other responsibilities. That's 5-6 people. So when you take that out of the market, you take me out of the market not buying, it kind of tanks down. Then you got Nat Turner, that's the new Joey PeaPod Griffey collection, basically. So,
yeah.
So, again, the timing of things is huge. And like even later this year, you don't know anything could happen,
So, okay. So then the people say, okay, that's not the price. That's not the comp for that particular card that you're talking about, the Super Rave, right?
Yeah. Super Rave. Yep.
There's a Super Rave. It's a Griffey card. For those of you folks that don't collect Griffey, those folks that aren't familiar with, it's a popular insert for Griffey in the 90s. It's a very popular card. It's a very rare card, and it should sell for way more than what it sold for, that Joey sold it. The point, card $15K right now, and is that something we should be looking at overall when it comes to some of these rarer cards? Because I think the reason we bring this up and the reason I wanted to speak to it on this episode was because there's a lot of big cards being sold right now, and there's different reasons why they're being sold. It could be just people bought them thinking they were going to be investments and now they're kind of worried. It could be because they need money, or there's a situation where they need money. It could be they got into the hobby, thought they would love it, don't care anymore, and now they just want to get rid of it, and they don't really care what they're going to sell it for. There's lots of different reasons, but some of these really rare cards, there's only a handful of people that actually want them too. So that also factors in. And because of all those different variables, cards will sell for certain amounts at certain times. But does that mean that the market and all those cards that are coming out that are big cards, does that mean that people are exiting and there's this exodus of the hobby? Or does that mean that people are, what does that mean? Do we know?
I mean, I don't think it really means like, I think now it's just like a lull, overall it's soft, but it's still strong. Like for instance, like I was saying before, the auctions I just ran, most of them didn't get what I wanted, but a few of them went over. So like as a whole, I got the number I thought I would get or close to it, but it was still light. Like right now, I think buying time. It's obviously buying season. If you have the cash, now is the time you should be stocking up on some of these auctions, and then definitely like hitting auction houses. Like right now, Golden to me is atrocious. Like if it's not a big ticket front page item, it's selling for pennies. Like pick that stuff off. Somebody just messaged me tonight, my buddy, and he's like, "Oh, I got 3 or 4 Griffies on Golden, and I had mistakenly won the other one for a steal." And I've seen that all over social media, and then like a lot of people are buying from Golden, selling on PWCC because PWCC is semi-strong right now. I think their website's a lot easier to use too. But it's just, I don't think it's like a super negative, like the sky's not falling. But I think it's definitely a good time to buy. And if you have something that's not super rare, then I think you might be impacted the most. But if you have something decently rare, I think it's a good store of value.
Store value. I like that you said store of value, because I've had a few episodes where I talked about that, and there's been some interesting response. There's been an interesting response to the store of value conversation, and I mentioned this with another episode I had following that initial episode I had with this gentleman named Brent, deep value investor. He was arguing against it, saying, well, if store value and investment's the same thing. I'm like, no, it's not. Because investment is something that you tend to make money off of, pull dividends from, and then eventually sell for a profit. That's an investment. That's, in my opinion, an investment. A store of value is I want to get these cards, put them into my collection, and not sell them. I want to hand them down to my children. I'd like them to not go down in value excessively. I'd love for them to stay within an earmark, within a percentage of what I paid. That would be nice because it's a store of value. It's basically taking the cash and putting it here instead of having it as cash. But you don't want that to go to nothing. But you also don't expect it to go 10x and then take that 10x out.
I think they're both true. It's just the difference is knowledge. So my knowledge on what I curated my Griffey collection to be is an investment, where somebody like you that might be newer and you don't really know how deep the rabbit hole goes, is more of a store of value. You know what I'm saying? So like all this, like this cards, like this, there's a ton of stuff that came up now. I would scoop up instantly if it was like the right price or whatever, that I think in the long term would be great investments. But then there's certain cards I know are just a store of value where it's not going to blow up. Like we'll take an example of, and it's popular in basketball and baseball, is credentials. Credentials to me is an investment, right? Especially high grade. Whereas 99 finest gold refractors, store of value. They're not going to blow up, and they haven't over the years. They've went up a couple grand here and there, but they haven't exponentially blown up like the credentials that used to be $600 and is now 20 grand. That same card. Whereas the finest
because of the crossover.
Well, they're both crossed over. They're just certain. That goes to my episode of like the hierarchy of insert sets. And this is 90s. Like current stuff is kind of, to me, all over the place. And I wouldn't invest in anything current. I would try, like, I still, I like prospecting. It's fun. You hope you get the next whoever. Mike Trout has a hot week, blows up, you get 10x your money. But that's more gambling. Like, and the difference between baseball and basketball, what I see is, say you buy Bauman Chrome right now, like you really don't know for like 5-6 years if that guy, what's going on. Like you could, whatever. Basketball, when Prism comes out, that's hot immediately, and then say they have a good spring or whatever, what do you call preseason? I don't even know what you call basketball, but a preseason, like, when Bol had that one good game, his stuff shot through the roof, and I was finally able to sell my gold that I pulled from a box for like $3,000. And before that, it was $200,
Well, so, okay. So let's roll it back. So if for a person like me, maybe other people like me that think it's a store of value, obviously some of these cards I'm buying, mostly from you. I mean, half my collection's from you at this point that's left, but it could be in your mind, you're like, no, you have investment cards. You have cards that should, not store
high
value.
Grade, high grade PSA 10s are investment cards. Like, like they just are. Like a PSA 10 Jordan is an investment grade card. It might not blow through the roof, but like a PSA 10 Jordan is always going to be in demand. I wouldn't suggest that anybody paid, $500,000 at the height, but, I consider anything, like, again, that's where the knowledge comes in. It's not cut and dry. You can't just go on a site, pick a list and say, oh, I want this card. You can kind of do that with vintage, but vintage, that stuff, again, doesn't pop up as often. And I don't deal in vintage, but I feel like vintage finds are fewer and far between, and people have a little more idea of kind of what they have, where the 90s market, 2000s market, you can find people selling collections that really don't know that they're, 1996 cards worth 20, 30 grand,
So, I mean, and you got people that spent a lot of money, in 21 when things were at the peak. And you got people like me who are now still, spending money on a lot of these cards. Obviously you know me well now. So when it comes to my hobby, my collection and all that, and I paid for most of it. You're like, no, you didn't make a poor decision there. That money is not only a store of value, but it's something that should go up over time. Is it going to go up? Is every one of your cards going to go up? No, except exponentially, no. But none of them should really lose value over time based on what I have left. The Griffies anyway. You know what I have in those. Right. That, for people buying cards right now, buying cards that are important, having the knowledge to know which cards are important, cards that are going to be in demand. You talk about essential credentials. Basketball essential credentials is a big deal. So that particular set is going to be more popular than, say, like a Topps Gold Label Red Class, whatever, where only so many people want that card. More people are going to want essential credentials because of the popularity. I mean, that makes total sense. So for the people that can't afford to buy those cards right now, there's probably a lot of people that can't. What do you say to those folks? Because you to get to your situation.
I mean, again, that's another there's really no cut and dry answer between, with that. It's just kind of putting in the work of getting out there, learning, like, all right, I'll check out all the different sites, like message boards between Blowout, Freedom Cardboard used to be one of them. I don't even know if there's any other sites, but like Facebook groups, you kind of just have to follow all the groups. eBay, learn how to search on eBay correctly to find steals and like.
How do you do that? If you
we,
want to give that
we delve into terror. Yeah. We'll just say less is more on eBay. Like, broader searches than specific searches, because 90% of people don't list the card correctly anyway. So, broader searches, messaging the sellers. I don't want to give.
Oh yeah, that's fine.
Everything
that's
away.
Enough. That's enough. So basically, I'm
gonna say put in the work. So like a lot of people know me now, a decent amount from the 90s community. I post on Instagram. I only I have like 3,000 followers, not a ton, but I've always shown my collection. So now people reach out to me with stuff. So I've gotten a lot of stuff just from recognition of, hey, I know you collect Griffey, or I know you like 90s inserts. I got this available. You interested? So it's just kind of putting in the work and being out there, and you kind of have to just stay on it. Just like I have two friends that are new to the hobby. One doesn't really truly understand it, and he'll just be buying random stuff. He likes Derrick Henry. And I'm like, he bought this select patch 1 of 1 at the Vegas show we went to last year. He paid $7,000 for it. I'm just like, oh my God. I'm like, dude, he's like, it's a 1 of 1. I'm like, he doesn't understand there's 400 1 of 1s out there, and it's probably really only worth like $1,000, And then I have another friend. He's like, I got these saved searches. And I'm like, honestly, saved searches are useless, because by the time, you have to just constantly anything good is gone within 5 minutes if it's like a steal, So you have to hope that you find it, and then you have to hope it actually ships and somebody doesn't rob you, which I will say on record that I think you're an asshole if you backdoor somebody. Honor amongst thieves, because they're not going to be paying the dude what it's worth. So say you get a $5,000 card for $100, right? And you message the seller and offer him 300, and he takes I feel like if you miss it, because there's people that just search 130 point and watch all the completeds come through, and they'll just go try to pick that stuff off. Basketball is even worse, with that stuff.
I've seen that happen I've had that happen on eBay. I've had people come out and go, hey, this person doesn't pay, I'll pay you this.
Right.
Happens all the time.
Yeah, I've had that. I've had the past 3 auctions. I have 4 people reach out to me. Last year, I probably lost 10 items that I won, that never got shipped. My buddy got lucky. He won. I'll say one of the examples. It was a Kobe. It's what's the Mystique Kobe? It's like the established, but it's the basketball version. He's in the air. I don't know what that's called, but it's the Mystique Kobe. It's number 200. I can't remember the name of it offhand, but he won it on eBay, and the dude happened to live near me. So we ended up meeting at the police station, and I went and picked it up for him. But he won it and literally worked that out within the hour. And then there was another card where, again, he won it in the morning, messaging the seller. He lived in New Hampshire, which is 2 hours from me. And we ended up driving up there and getting it on the spot, because he was already getting messages. And that's honestly probably one of the greatest steals of all time. I'll just say the price. He got it for $10,000. It's worth at its peak, it was $500,000. I don't know what it's worth now, but that stuff exists out there. You just have to find it. You can't. I definitely didn't build my collection. I didn't build my collection just outgunning people on eBay. I could have never afforded it, and I can't afford it now. So you have to get creative with flipping up, in my opinion, unless you're already wealthy. If you already have money, this is a whole different conversation. But for the people that are newer, they don't have a ton of expendable income. To me, it's learning grading and flipping,
Okay, let's segue into grading. Talk to me about grading. We talked about it before in the last episode. I don't think you never talk about grading enough, because it's such a hot topic, and it drives our hobby like no other. What do you think, and since we didn't talk about this since the last time we had an episode, What's your reaction to that Beckett situation with at the Mint Collective? They came out saying, okay, all of a sudden now this is a Min Gem Plus, and if you have these subgrades, now you have a BGS 10. Did you see that news?
That was a complete clusterfuck in my opinion. Like somebody didn't think that one through, because like me reading it, I read into it is that they had to change their whole grading standard. So you're telling me that all these gem mints aren't gem mints anymore, you know? And the thing with Beckett, with me personally, is like, to me, their grading scale, it doesn't equate to what it says. You know, people put too much faith in those numbers. That's why I like PSA, because yes, two PSA 10s could be way different. But like Beckett, you know, a perfect example, the credentials that sold tonight on Golden Auctions. Maybe I'll try to pull it up. Oh, I got a picture actually. We're gonna show this picture of one example. And this can go for any company, but just for argument's sake, we'll start with this one.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see.
All right, so let's check. I don't know if you can see that very good, but
yeah, we can see it.
So the centering, as you can see, is off left to right. Yeah. Yep. And it's a sizable amount. Now, it might still be gem, whatever, but I mean, PSA wise, it wouldn't be, but like the centering's off. That's not a 9.5 centering, in my opinion. But again, their scale is like, I've had cards that have raised corners and I gave it a 10. So it just doesn't.
But aren't they known for having aren't they known? BGS is more known for having more scrutiny on centering, though, aren't they?
No, because I've seen worse gems in a BGS case than a PSA case. You know, I'll start with, I think 95% of people that grade cards or buy graded cards don't know what they're looking at or how to grade a card and what the criteria is for the grade. Like there's one group in particular, sports card nonsense, must have like all the brand new people, because like the stuff I see in that group on Facebook is like on next level stupidity with grading. Like they didn't even go on the website, you know. So we'll segue into that. You know, one thing I don't know if you see it all the time. Oh, you know, PSA, there's a bunch of talking about PSA and standard and whatever. So in a PSA sends out a magazine. I think it's monthly. I'm not really sure, or it's bi-monthly. But inside, there's 4 pages. Boom. PSA grading standard.
PSA grading. Yeah.
So there's a whole page right here. And one thing I was talking about, my friend on this page of it is they more describe vintage. Like they maybe could update some of the terms for modern cards, right? But that's my own. But they literally map out what each grade can have, right, for a floor. And then, you know, they have a page of, you know, the qualifier symbols. That's hand cut cards. And then my favorite one, it's a whole, you know, paragraph or a few paragraphs, half a page. Boom. There we go. I'll get it.
The importance of eye appeal
and subjectivity in grading. Boom. So like we'll preface, we'll say,
there you go.
We'll say this, you're paying for an opinion. This is every company, right? So PSA's obviously been around, you know, one of the longest. And, you know, everybody always talks, oh, SGC's catching up. SGC's been out almost as long as PSA has. They've never gained ground because, you know, to me, like if you grade two, like everything, if you go to, what's that site? Gemrate.com. It breaks down like a whole bunch of stuff. But one of my favorite slides is the one that shows like the gem rate broken down by era. You know, so if you look at the 80s, it's like 5%. You go into the 90s, it's like 12%. Get to the 2000s to 2011, it's like, I think it's like 30%. But then once you hit modern, it's like 70%. I'll just pull it up. But the point being is,
And that's
every era,
better quality of production.
It's better quality of production. So people think that it's a circulation issue, like, which is probably true for a little bit of it. But if you go open the case of 89 Upper Deck, for instance, say you pulled 50 Griffies, I don't know how many come out of a case, but 20 Griffies. And somebody actually did this on YouTube a while back too. It's possible that your best Griffey is a 7, out of a case, and that's fresh out of the pack. So it's the production quality. Like, I opened a ton of 90 stuff. I pulled a Jeter 98 platinum medallion. It looked like somebody wrote on the back with like a pen that ran out of ink. Like, it was all scribbled on the back, so it's not that, a little kid put it in their bike or threw it around their house. It's just a production quality. Whereas you get into 2011 chrome, the stock is different on the back. So it's being cut perfect. You still have some sets, like, what's crazy is, for instance, Prism, like, we'll take Zion Zero Prism 2018, right? Is that Zion?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I think his PSA 10 count is like 20,000. So that should give you an idea of how much product they printed, because I've opened cases where, like, the centering is literally there's no left border and it's all the way to the right. So, like, that year had a lot of poor quality production, but again, there's still enough product out there that like there's that many gems. Where you open up 1986 tops. This was like a while back. Somebody saw Eric Davis sold PSA 10 1986 tops, and it got like $1,200, and they're like, "Oh, that's crazy." There's millions out there. Just go open more product. It's not that easy, because again, somebody like a Common or Eric Davis or whoever, like, you have to find one that's actually clean and then be good. Like, most people aren't going to waste the money to send that in. So, even cards like 1990 Donruss, people like a Griffey Diamond King, still $250. There's only 50 of them, which, figure how much they printed of that and how many people graded, but like the percentage kind of sums it up. 1989 Upper Deck Ken Griffey Jr. is the most graded card of all time, and it's at like a 5% gem rate, and then you'll see some videos out there. There's one that this guy is like just always negative, and one of them's like about the 93 SP, how it's pop control. So I don't know if anybody's ever opened 93 SP. You don't even get a Jeter in every box. Like the one I bought a few years ago, I didn't get one. A lot of times, like, it's stuck, and then it is really that condition sensitive. And, people are, there's a lot more Jeters graded because they're sending Jeter in to, every grade, whereas, the argument was that Chipper Jones had more gems, but like, it is possible that the chipper and the run came out a little cleaner than the Jeters. But more than likely, a Jeter is going to be a Chipper Jones is going to be scrutinized more than the Jeter is. If that makes sense.
Yes.
As far as like what they're going to send, they're not going to send like any Chipper Jones in. They're going to only send the best. Whereas the Jeter, like when Jeter came out, Chipper Jones was good from the start. Jeter really wasn't as big until like 95. So it's possible his got circulated around a little more too. But that's not really the point. The point is it comes straight out of the pack. It's pretty bad. If you open, for instance, 1987 Donruss, you might open a whole box and not even get one card that's gem quality, like just soft corners, miscut, chipping. Whereas you open 2018 Topps Chrome Update, you can have PSA open the box and you'll get 90% 10s,
Right.
So it's just kind of understanding.
I think that the premise of this it's really hard to gem a card, especially in the 80s and 90s. There's a reason why the pop counts on PSA 10 are very limited. But then there's also quite a few more. You think about Barry Bonds is 86 tops traded, not the Tiffany version. The 86 tops traded. And that card, I know friend Dustin here on this channel, he's got one of those. There's actually quite a few of those in 10s. But then you got to think about the gem rate. How many of those were printed? I think 86 is when they started really heating up the presses with tops.
Well, 86 was, that was a box set too. So that's going to be a little different. And then the Tiffany sets are so that one had but this is like the most important tool you can get. So if you don't use one of these to grade, especially you can actually eye new stuff fairly well and probably get a lot of 9s and 10s and think you're good. But the difference between a 9 and a 10 most of the time, especially on new stuff, is how you prep the card and knowing where the flaw is. So a lot of times on Chrome, let's grab this card right here. So we'll take Finest. This could be any Chrome card. Just looking at the back, right? And you're eyeing the corners, and it looks sharp. But if you're not looping the corner, you're not going to see it. Could be slightly rounded. It could be upticked. A prime example would be 93 tops, 93, 94 tops, or 89 tops traded. It's got that white border, 89 upper deck. If you just look at the card, it looks great. But once you use the loop, you'll see the chips on the edges, chips on the corners. So, that's kind of what got me started grading was 93 tops. I bought a complete set of the Colorado Rocky version, which has the Jeter rookie. Pulled the Jeter, perfectly centered. I'm like, oh, this card is no brainer 10. I'm about to cash out my $2,000. Got it back. It was an 8. I'm like, what the hell? Went and got a loop. I said, okay, I got it. I didn't see why it's an 8 now. The whole edge was chipped all the way through. So you can't see that with the naked eye a lot of the time. And that's the same thing with 89 upper deck. People, oh, my card's perfectly centered. Nope, it's the edge. It's either chipped or cracked. Usually is, me personally, you tell me any card from the 90s, I could tell you what the flaw is before you tell me. There's certain characteristics to certain cards. For instance, 95 Bauman's best. Griffey has the helmet, and every helmet there's a line through the helmet. Or 95 Bauman's best. He's got a similar line that comes through 90% of them, and most of them have refractor lines. Or it's just knowing the card. That's not as prevalent in the new stuff. The new stuff is mostly just all right, did it get dinged or not? There's very little occasional print lines. Print lines are not as prevalent now as they were in the 90s. They kind of rectified that, but Prism does have a lot more than say Topps Chrome.
Sounds like you should set yourself up with one of those the services of pre-grading cards for folks, and charge people per card, and based on the gem rate, maybe I don't know. There's opportunities there. I personally don't grade. I've graded a few times, and I've struck it. I think I've gotten 2 10s. PSA 10s of all the cards I've sent in, and a few BGS 95s, but mostly, I send in cards, the ones I'm the most confident about. Send in some 90s and 80s cards, and it's always 7s and 8s. So, and I feel like they're strong. So yeah, it takes a real trained eye to see some of those things. I think it's important. That's why I would always go buy the card.
Yeah.
Puts a real premium and a real importance on a PSA 10, in my opinion, because that kind of shows you how important those cards are. Okay. So have you ever had a card that you've sold that you've regretted selling, or how do you handle that when you sell a card? Because you've been doing a little bit of that lately, and there's probably some people that are kind of going, I need to sell some of this because I need the cash right now more than I need the card, but I really, really love the card and I want to keep the card. How do you speak to that? What would you say to that person? Who has that
yes.
How do you?
Yes, I have sold cards I've regretted. But I've also learned over the years, I can find pretty much anything in my collecting realm, So with that being said, when I do go to sell, like what I've sold recently, I don't just blindly sell stuff. I'm selling stuff in my head. All right, I got my top 20. I do not want to touch unless I really have to, right? And for whatever, a lot of people have different reasons they need to sell. And, recently, people, I ignored like 90% of them just because I was tired of getting that question, like, oh, you okay? I'm like, I just kind of ignored it, but like I needed to sell. I didn't want to sell. I wouldn't have picked the worst time ever to unload the best stuff you can get of Griffey. But with that said, it was strategic. So I sold stuff either like high pop counts. I sold stuff that I knew other people had, or I knew I could find again easily. That's pretty much like the criteria of what I sold. Now, there's a couple things like the Super Rave. Yeah, I probably won't get that back, but I was okay losing that. So that was on my list of stuff. Like, all right, I don't really mind to let this go. But like, for instance, I just sold a 93 Finest Refractor. That's a pop 44. That's not hard to find. Now, mine, I know that most of them aren't super clean, but again, I'm not overly concerned with finding one again. Same thing with the 94 Finest Refractor I just sold. Did I want to break up my collection? No, but at the time I needed it, and I know it's something I can get back, maybe even cheaper, or I can find one raw, grade it, and then I made out again.
Grade it. Right.
Yep. So that's the criteria, and like basically the stuff I have left is like, if I do sell it, I'm probably not gonna find it again, or it's gonna be really, really hard. But if whoever you collect, this is obviously collectors, not flippers show. If you collect somebody, get yourself entrenched in the world of whoever you collect, or because I noticed the 90s era is a lot more like community, right? We all know each other. Where I don't know if there's like a Mike Trout community or a Kuna community, or I know there's some Facebook pages, but I don't know how tight knit that.
Nothing like the insert community in the 90s. It's nothing like Jordan, Kobe, LeBron, Griffey. I think those communities are real healthy, and they're, at least I'm a newbie in the Griffey community, but boy, I've learned a lot. And there's been a lot of great people that have reached out and very welcoming. And okay, once you start showing interest in the stuff that matters in that community, people kind of go, all right. You kind of have to work your way into it. But yes, it is a very cool community. And there are little sub-communities in there. There is a trout. I don't really know if there's a trout. There's a trout blowout page that's been running for a while. It's a perennial thread. But I just think there's a lot of people that collect him. I think long-term he'll be good. But, I mean, for me personally, he's not, I'd rather have more Griffies. That's why, right. You and I talked earlier, that was, but that's because once you kind of start learning about this particular player, for me, it's easy because I'm here in Seattle, born and raised. So Griffey's always been it for us. But I think once you kind of get into that, but I was talking to, a mutual friend of ours, Marco Bissio Jr. on another episode. And what we did talk about was kind of interesting is that, it's kind of cool to have the cards that people in your community want. And they may not be cards that everybody else wants. But for me, it's cool to know like I've told you, there's a couple cards I have. I'm glad, I've gotten from you. That's probably the only reason I'd have them is because you sold them to me. But it's cool to know I have these cards that are desirable to you, to Marco, and to probably a lot of folks in the community. That to me is like a badge of honor. It's something that you kind of go, all right, it's pretty cool. I like that fact. And I'm the kind of guy where I'm like, well, if I'm going to move it or sell it, I'd probably find people within the community I know that want to keep it, to give it to. But then there's also folks that just want to, they need to make money and they got to take care of their family. So I don't have any problem with people that want to sell and try to, make extra to gain something from the card if they have to sell it. Like, you're selling stuff right now to gain it. There's nothing wrong with that. You got to take care of yourself and your family. At the end of the day, these are cards. As much as we love them, they're cards. It's you treat people you treat people with respect. You do the right thing. That is always there. There's always an option to sell back, buy back, do the right, sell within the community, not sell within the community. But I also feel like in general, I think a lot of folks might be watching this. They're like, well, I'm not in any collector community other than the hobby community, so I don't really know if this applies to me or do I care. But I'm learning as you get into, you start digging deeper, and I think folks are learning too, hopefully on the show, as you dig deeper into these communities, there's sort of like this etiquette, that's sort of expected. And I do think that it's okay to step outside of that and to make money for, because you know what, if my kid needs something, or we're in a situation where I need to sell, I'm taking care of my family, my children. I'm not going to worry about what this guy over here thinks, you know. I think that's important.
I've always been in it's the hobby's always been from day one, buy, sell, trade. Like, who cares if somebody, like, for instance, say you get a steal on eBay for $50 and the card's worth $5,000, but I want it. I'm going to give you I wouldn't expect be like, oh, I'll give you $2,000 for it. I've had people like, pretty much if people deal with me and I don't like them, I just won't deal with them. I won't sell them anything. I won't entertain their questions. It's their loss. Life's too short to be dealing with like negativity and, all that type of stuff. But, if people want to make money, who cares? That's on them. Same thing with, like, if I sell somebody a card, I don't care what they do with it. If you want to burn it, knock yourself out. You want to, a lot of people get upset. Mm-hmm. Oh, I sold them that card, and they're trying to sell it again. So it's like, once it leaves my hand, I really don't care what people do with it. But
it's interesting. There's there's a website that just came out that it's a website called Card Porn on Instagram. It's pretty popular. I think obviously everybody knows what it is, and they have this post about those Michael Jordan flu game shoes, and that now the seller, the original ball boy who had this, he's claiming he was coerced into selling the shoes to the auction house, and because all of a sudden they sold for $2.2 million, he's having this like seller's remorse. It's like, that's not how it works. It doesn't work that way. You don't get to just get them back and expect to get them back, and that's not how it works. Once you sell it, you sell it. It's if it sells for more later down the road, that is what it is. That's kind of a flawed logic in my opinion. That is a flawed logic, because I don't know about that situation, so I won't even comment on it. But if like, for instance, if everybody has the option to run something at auction or buy it now, right? So if you don't want to take the chance at auction or don't know how to run a good auction, that's why I get so upset. Like when people steal my steals, or somebody sells something, buy it now, and they undersold it. Like, you came up with that price. What were you looking at? It's not my job to educate you on what you want for your item. Do you know what I'm saying? Like, if people ask me, I'll tell them, but I'm not going around, oh, hey, you got that listed for $20. It's a $200 card. Like, you came up with that price somehow. We're living in the age of, you could just Google and find most information, so I put that on the seller and, right.
The laziness of them,
Well, I think we're just going to cap this off here. We've got a lot of good stuff we talked about. Plus, I want to talk about more stuff in another episode, because we have so much we can talk about. This is a nice little bite-sized chunk of knowledge and information. So thanks, Joe, for jumping on the show a second time on a different channel. I'm hoping that we get a lot more folks that get introduced to you and your thought process on how the hobby works, grading works, comps work, just collector etiquette, all these different things I think are important for us to know. And again, I'm not shy to say it. I've been learning a ton from you, which has been really fun. So we'll continue to grow and keep educating folks so they can make good decisions and can have a good time in the hobby and enjoy doing what we all love to do, is collect cards. So thanks again for jumping on. You can find Joey at Joey_PeaPod on Instagram. And I don't know if you want to share your eBay handle, if anybody wants to go check out anything you're selling.
It's actually attached to my Instagram. So K_Griffey_Junior.
There you go.
And next time,
go find him there and go check out what he has to offer.
I was just going to say, next time we can, grading could have been a little deeper with more specifics, but I think we did good for today. So.
Yeah, I think we'll give them the first layer, and then give them a second layer. We don't want glazed eyes. We'll start with that, and hopefully, folks, you guys can pick up some good stuff from this. Comment below. I know Joey will jump in there and comment with you guys if you have any questions or concern. He'll jump on YouTube and he'll comment. He does have a YouTube channel. If you haven't already, go back and check out some of his stuff. He's posted with him and Rodney, a friend of his in the Griffey community, have put out a few really cool episodes on, if you're a Griffey guy, you're going to love it. If you're just a general card guy or baseball card guy, you're going to enjoy it too. A lot of good stuff that's shared on those shows. So I encourage you to go back, check those out. You can also go back, if you go to Luca Tiger Braun, you can find the first episode with Joey that I did there. You'll find it there. It still lives there. You'll see it. Go find it and listen to that if you want to learn more about how Joey got his start. But we're going to keep growing this thing and moving it and keep talking more and more about some things and diving deeper so that folks can generate more knowledge and understand and learn. Because I can tell you, man, I've been doing it and it has completely changed my collecting experience, has made it much more fulfilling and exciting, and got me past a lot of things I thought, a year ago, I never would expect to be in this position right here, understanding and collecting where I'm at. But I'm sure glad I am, because it's made it so much more fulfilling. I mean, for me, it's gone down to less is more. I'd rather have way less, but very high quality cards. To me, that's way more important. Plus, I don't have all the cash to throw around. Some folks might have. Good on them. That's awesome. But some of us, we have to use the capital we have, and sometimes make tough decisions. But thanks, Joey, for jumping on. I appreciate you listening to, answering the questions. And again, folks, comment below. Share the show with your friends. Tell people to come back and watch us. Come check out the Sports Card Dad. Dustin's got a lot of great content on the channel. Check it out as you see it come through. Thanks, Joe. Have a great rest of your evening, man.
Appreciate it. Take it easy. You too.
Thank you.